Friday, May the 24th, right through to Tuesday, the 28th. We're going to be showing hundreds of features, shorts, some amazing projects. I have to say, this is the strongest lineup I think we've had since I joined the festival. But today on this episode, in this chat, we're going to be talking to the Soldier of Smithdown Road co-director, Barney Pell Scholes, whose movie will be showing on Friday the 24th of May. I think you're part of the launch night shorts section, which is cool.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
And that's 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. on Screen 8. So please get in there, check out all the shorts, but in particular, check out the Soldier on Smithdown Road, because this is a really, really powerful short, Barney, and we're going to get into that in a second. But first of all, how are you? How are you this fine day?
I'm good, yeah. I'm coming to you live from Spain, so yeah, it's boiling hot outside, and after this is finished, I'm going to go and lie in the sunshine for a bit. So yeah, can't complain too much.
I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous at all, because we've got like this really warm mist this morning. So it's
Lovely.
Strange because the mist has come in and it's covered everywhere. You can barely see anything, but it's warm.
Slight horror movie aesthetic then. Slight horror movie vibes. Yeah.
Especially in this town.
Yeah.
One of the things that when I go down to the festival and I'm down there in person is I get to do all the Q&As on stage, but I don't really get to dive too deep into what's going on, because sometimes we have two or three directors, actors, creators on the stage. So it's good to actually be able to sit down and have an actual conversation, like a proper conversation. So with that in mind, I want to jump back a quick second before we get into the short, and tell us a little bit about Barney and a little bit about your background and how you came into the film industry, and most of all, why would you do it?
Good question. I'm ssort of relatively new to it all, I would say. So I've only kind of been in the film industry and kind of writing for about 2.5-3 years now, which I guess is feels like a long time, but I think it still qualifies as a newcomer. But yeah, my background before that was I used to work in politics, actually. Like that was what I did for about 6 or 7 years, mainly working on various campaigns that failed spectacularly. That was my specialism. So yeah, I kind of, it's a long story, but long story short, me and my co-director, Tom Harnett O'Meara, we are friends going back. We're both from Liverpool originally, and we've been friends since before we were born. Our parents were friends before we were born. So we've known each other forever. We'd kind of been writing stuff on and off for a while, and then during the first COVID lockdown, we actually had the chance to sit down and write a feature script together, kind of just as a project to keep us both busy as much as anything else. Actually that kind of had a bit of interest and some success kind of in the development process. It got kind of interest from a production company, and we had some quite exciting meetings about it. So even though it sort of ended up fizzling out a little bit, that kind of gave me the feeling that, film and writing is actually something that I could pursue as a career. And it came at a time when I was sort of getting a bit fed up with politics anyway, partly as a result of the repeated failed campaigns. So me and Tom started writing stuff together a bit more kind of professionally, I suppose. And then in the last kind of 18 months, I've gone fully committed to this career change, and now I'm a freelance writer and film director and script reader, script and book reader as well. So we've made a couple of shorts together. This is our second short film. This one we got funding for from UK Jewish Film, which was really important to getting the project off the ground, through their Pairs Short Film Fund, which is a really amazing short film fund if people are interested in checking it out. This is our second short film. It's based on a true story about my grandparents. I don't know, maybe we can get into that a bit more now. But it's a film I'm really proud of, because it's a part of my family's history, I suppose, and like I say, it is based on my real grandparents, and it has a kind of photo of them at the end. So yeah, it's quite special for me to have it screened at Romford Film Festival. It's always amazing seeing it kind of up on the big screen and seeing audiences, we connect with it. So yeah, I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity.
But I mean, quickly on that before we talk about Smithdown Road, where's the Scouse accent?
10 years in London sort of fades away. Yeah, that and being sort of painfully middle class. It does come back when I go back to Liverpool. It starts to either if I go back to Liverpool, it comes back on certain times. Basically, either if I go back to Liverpool, or if I'm watching footy, or if I'm annoyed about something, then the Scouse accent sort of drifts back in. But yeah, like I say, being in London for a long time sort of takes the edges off it, I think.
I think London changes everyone, and it's a shame. It's a shame. We should really just continue to be who we actually are. But no, I love that. So first of all, as well, is obviously you have your writing and co-directing partner there, but was there anyone else, like maybe like a family member or someone who at school, was there anyone else that kind of nurtured this love of film for you, or was it just a case of I'm done with politics, let's go make movies?
No, it's definitely like my dad is a huge sort of cinephile, and one of our main bonding activities, apart from going to watch Liverpool play, is going to the cinema and watching films together. So yeah, from a very young age, I was kind of like, one of my formative memories is him trying to show me Total Recall when I was definitely too young to be watching Total Recall, and my mum kind of coming in halfway through, Arnold Schwarzenegger's eyes popping out of his head and being like, "What is this film that you're showing?" And but yeah, I think I've had a love of film since a very young age, largely because of my dad, and that's carried on. And so it was always something that I definitely was interested in, and in a kind of dream world, I would think like, wow, it'd be amazing to be a writer or a script writer or a director, but I just never thought it was possible, really. I just never saw a way to do it. So that was why doing that first feature script with Tom and kind of getting a bit of positive feedback on that was like a real kind of road to Damascus moment, where it was like, wow, this is actually a possible a thing that people can actually do and make a living out of. So yeah.
And on this shot, because we're going to be showing The Soldier on Smithdown Road at the Romford Film Festival, and from what I can tell, I've seen it's doing really well in other places as well. So I'm seeing a lot of like amazing responses from this, and rightly so. But it is a deeply personal tale for yourself, but it's also super relatable, even for someone like me who doesn't really know anything about that world, and I found it really relatable. But what was it about this story and now, and that this was the story you wanted to tell, and how did you flesh it out, really?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for saying that. That means a lot, because it is obviously, like, I'm Jewish, and the film is based on a Jewish family, and obviously has a lot of very prominent Jewish themes within it. But I did also, it was really important for us to hopefully make something that people could connect to, even if they're
absolutely
Jewish, and sort of understand it. So the fact that seems to have come across is great. The reason I was drawn to the story was because it was such an amazing piece of family folklore. Partly, my granddad died when I was about 8 years old, so I never really got the chance to, I remember him as a kid, but I didn't really ever have the chance to kind of talk to him in any great detail about who he was and about his life. So kind of hearing the story from my dad and my uncle, I was just like, wow, this is such an amazing story, and something that I think a lot of people don't know very much about as well. It's kind of set in 1947 in Liverpool, so in the sort of immediate aftermath of the Second World War. And it's based on events that were happening in what was then British Mandate Palestine, but obviously now is Israel and Gaza and the West Bank. And the story is about how these events that are happening very far away do often have, or almost always have, this kind of knock-on repercussions for diaspora Jews who live, in Britain or in other parts of the world as well. That's something that I've experienced in my life, is that whenever there's kind of violence flaring up in the Middle East, in Israel and the surrounding area, which is unfortunately happens a lot.
Yes.
It does often have these repercussions, and that if you're a British Jew, you feel it in all kinds of different ways. And this was just a very dramatic example of that happening. And I also thought it was interesting from a historical perspective that this was happening right in the aftermath of the Second World War. And, Britain obviously has, understandably, a kind of narrative about itself of, we beat the Nazis and we won the war. And that's true. But we're talking about 1947, right after the war. And this is a real thing that happened. There were antisemitic riots and violence against Jews in Liverpool and in cities all across the UK as a result of these events happening in the Middle East. So I think it's important to just understand history in that context, that nothing is black and white, that there's always these kind of shades of grey to it. And that was kind of what we wanted to convey with the film. And we actually started making it before this recent, I don't want to kind of get too deep into political stuff, but we actually started making it before this latest kind of horrific round of violence had started. So it felt very uncomfortable, actually. We were going through post-production when all of the kind of October 7th and then obviously the following kind of violence in Gaza really kicked off. So yeah, it felt very uncomfortable. At one point, one of the UK Jewish film coordinators said to me, the film is so prescient now and kind of people will understand it because of what's going on now. And I get that, but I wish it wasn't. I wish it wasn't. But it was trying to explore those themes. So yeah, the fact that it's happening again in such a kind of obvious way, I guess, does make the film kind of land in a different way as well.
I think, yes, you're right, because I do think in a way, like I say, I'm not part of that world. I don't know that world. I don't know that time. And this is definitely something that has never really been explored from what I can tell on screen, like TVs, films, or anything like that. And if they have, it's been very loose. They've not really delved into it. So to watch this, but also, as you say, as a viewer, that's kind of in the real world in the background, it makes it all the more relevant. So I think it lands a little bit harder the way it's supposed to, if you know what I mean, because of that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean I think it's to show as well that these aren't new things. These undercurrents are always kind of there, even in British society, where we often think of ourselves as kind of, very, especially for British Jews, are very integrated, generally speaking, into British society. But there is always this undercurrent of, well, when things go wrong or when these things are happening, this undercurrent of anti-Semitism kind of does bubble its way to the surface very, very easily, and that's not a new phenomenon at all. And that's what I kind of wanted to say with this story.
It lands perfectly as well. And a big part of that, I thought, is Mr. Eddie Toll, your lead star. How did you go about casting Eddie, but also creating this character that is essentially your granddad, and how did you work together to make that?
Yeah, I think we had a really great casting director, Beth Charkham, who was the first part of that equation, who worked with us really closely to throughout the casting process, and obviously suggested Eddie to us. Me and Tom don't like really doing self-tapes. We find that it's a bit of a restrictive way of casting people, which seems to be something that lots of people are sort of agreeing on now, which I think is quite a good thing. We like to do it in person casting where possible, so that we can like meet the actor and talk through the script with them and sort of rehearse it a little bit and just figure out how we connect as well on a personal level. I think that's really important, especially when you're doing a short film, when you don't have a lot of time, and it's often quite high pressure shoot and things like that. So if you don't know whether you're going to get along with the person and be able to direct them, then that's really difficult. So I think in-person casting was a really big part of this. We met with Eddie. We really, really loved him for the part. I think in terms of it being based on my granddad, obviously that is true, but I did try to think of it as like a character in a film rather than based on the real life version of my granddad, because I thought if I try and sort of cast somebody that I think like represents my granddad, then I'm just going to kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole and not end up casting necessarily the best person for the part. So I did try to think of it as like, this is a character in a film, not necessarily a real life person, and what are they bringing to it from that point of view. But I think what Eddie does really well, which I love, is just it's kind of the things that he's saying with that. He doesn't have like a huge amount of dialogue in the film necessarily, but it's a lot of it is done with kind of his facial expressions and little movements and little eye movements and things like that. So then what that means is when you get to the finale of the film and he does have this kind of this speech that he delivers to this mob that's arrived at the shop, it lands, I think, really heavily, because you know that he's not somebody that kind of throws words away. Like, he chooses his words carefully. So when he is delivering this kind of this momentous sort of speech at the end, it just landed in a really incredible way. But yeah, he was amazing. I was so happy that we found him, and he was a real joy to work with as well. I loved him.
And how much were you able to just let him sort of, I don't want to say off the leash, but sort of play with the role? How much were you able to do that?
I mean, we're very, like, me and Tom believe in collaboration. Like, that's the way we make films. We believe it's a collaborative exercise, and you want to have your creative vision and your idea for how you want it, but like, actors are incredibly creative people, and we like this atmosphere where we can like talk through things and figure out what works and what doesn't. So if actors think this isn't quite working, this line of dialogue or this movement or whatever, can we try it a different way? Like, we're always open to that. And so that was something we did with Eddie. And in terms of, I think the thing that Eddie did brilliantly as well was like consistency of performance, which is really important for again, for a short film where you don't have loads of time to kind of mess around with loads of different versions of the scene and things like that. Once we'd figured out like, this is how it's going to be, like, this is the delivery, this is the movement, etc. Like, his consistency through each take was like perfect. So that just helps you out so much, I think, for anybody who's kind of involved in making short films, especially when you get to the editing process. To have that consistency of performance through the takes is just like a real gift. And I don't think it's something that everyone can do. So yeah, that was really helpful as well.
What was your process on putting the sound together, your score? Because the score is in of itself, it's its own little character. When you get to that scene when he comes walking out of the shop, it is so unbelievably tense, and his delivery in that scene. There's one particular line, I don't really want to. It's not really a spoiler, but I might mention it after the recording. But there's one particular line that he says, and it just hits on every single level because of his delivery, but also the sound. So how did you go about creating that?
Wow. Now I want to know which line you're talking about, but yeah, we'll maybe discuss after. The music was a real. So we work in terms of our overall kind of post-production sound. We work with a company called String and Tins, based in Soho, who are brilliant, and they help us out a lot. They've helped us out with our previous short film. Big shout out to Will Cohen, who was our sort of lead on post-production sound from String and Tins, and is just an all-round, like, one of the genuinely nicest and most talented people that I've ever met in my life. So he kind of oversaw the whole post-production sound, and he's just a super talented professional and knows what to do for those kind of moments. In terms of the score, I would love to talk about that actually, because George Hinson, who was our composer, works for String and Tins, but is also a really talented kind of musician and composer in his own right, and was really keen to work on composing the score with us. And what we knew about the music from the beginning for the score was that we really didn't want it to be like, a sort of stereotypical like Fiddler on the Roof type klezmer, because I think that's easy to go into that, with a sort of Jewish period drama. It would be very easy to go down that road with it, and I just really didn't want that. But what I wanted was this kind of like maybe slightly Middle Eastern influence to it. Maybe I was talking about the oud a lot at one point. Right. Because I just like the idea that these events happening in the Middle East are like landing in the UK, and I felt that we could maybe communicate that through the score. And George was like totally into all of that, and like a lot of the stuff on the score is like him kind of playing it all himself and then putting it together. So he did an absolutely amazing job, and it was like genuinely, like, when you're putting together a film, sometimes it's hard to kind of get yourself out of the weeds because you've seen it so many times and like you've put together every single frame, and sometimes it's really hard to kind of tell whether it's all working or not. And the moment when we put the edit together and George had put the rough version of the score on top, like I was genuinely like, oh my god, like it works as a film. Because before that I was like really like, oh, I don't know if this is all like holding together, and then once the score was on top of it, it was like, yeah, brilliant. Like it just really brought it up to another level. And yeah, I'm so happy with the work that he did on it. And like you say, it communicates all the right emotions, this kind of building tension through the film, and then the sort of, you know, real tension as things start to escalate. And then so I was just so happy with the job that he did. So yeah, George, thank you, love you.
Yeah, I think your entire team has smashed it. But that's you praising your team and praising the people around you. But when you see the movie and when you watch the movie up on a big screen with an audience, any creator can tell me what's wrong with it. But I like to ask what you see up there and you're most proud of, like something that maybe was a hard day, but you nailed it and it looks absolutely amazing up there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. I think you're right. Like, I find it almost impossible to watch any, you know, film that I've made and not just be like, oh god. But I think that's true of anybody who works in film. So. There's a few bits. I mean, I actually am really proud with the overall, like, film kind of. First time we saw it in the cinema, it premiered at the UK Jewish Film Festival in November, and we had like a sold-out screening at the Phoenix Cinema in East Finchley. And when it kind of faded out and the photo of my grandparents kind of came up on screen, I was genuinely quite emotional because I was like, I'd sort of imagined this moment for a long time, kind of going through all the stress of making the film. And I always thought like, yeah, but it's good if we can make it a good film. And if I have that moment in the cinema when my grandparents' pictures are on the screen, I'm going to feel like I was just kind of focusing on that moment, you know, being like, that's going to be the moment when you sort of, done it. So that was genuinely like a really special feeling, and I did get a bit emotional with that. So that's one element. I think there's a few bits I love the scene when he's like walking back from the pub to the shop, the nighttime one. I just think that looks really beautiful, and the sort of pan up into the window works really nicely. And then we kind of cut into the dinner. Seeing that cut works great because we kind of shot those on 2 different days and we weren't totally sure whether it was gonna all fit together, but actually it works great. And I think I'm really happy with the overall look of the film. Like, we shot it at the Black Country Living Museum in the West Midlands, which is this incredible kind of like living history museum where they've rebuilt, you know, a sort of 1930s street and a Victorian street, and they filmed Peaky Blinders and stuff there, so they kind of know what they're doing in terms of so we were really lucky to get it, and that kind of helped with the look a lot. And we got really good got great support from Angel's Costumes, who gave us the costumes for the film and worked really hard on that. And you know, they sort of figured out the exact right uniform for Louis and put that all together. So that all makes it. I think that all gives it hopefully a kind of slightly more cinematic feeling and sort of delivers that period atmosphere. So I think that, I know that's a kind of not necessarily one specific moment, but I think the overall atmosphere and look of the film is something that I am actually genuinely really, really happy with.
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer would have been everything, but
I know, but that sounds.
No, I'm glad you went through those things though. It's really cool because it does all add to every moment. And you're right, the pictures fading in at the end is fantastic. The costume, the suit he has on when he walks out the door, such a powerful moment, such a great moment on screen. It's just, I can't wait for people to see it again. Friday the 24th of May, the 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Screen 8 section. It's the launch night shots. Please do make sure you're there. We're going to start wrapping up in a quick second, but I do have one little tricky question I'd like to ask at the end. But first of all, where can people see the Soldier of Smithdown Road after the Romford Film Festival? Where can people get a look at this? And what's the future of the short?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the sort of relatively early stages of its festival run at the moment. So it's screened at a few festivals already, kind of in the UK, and then also internationally. So the next one, actually kind of at the same time as Romford, is the Fastnet Film Festival in Ireland it's screening at, which is in County Cork, which sounds like a really great festival. Actually, I've not been to it before, but we're going. That's actually the reason I can't attend Romford in person, unfortunately, because I'd already booked to go to the one in Ireland. But so that's the next one it's screening at, and then it will also be at Kingston Film Festival in June. If people are in London and want to come to that, it's a really good local festival. And then it'll be screening at kind of hopefully more festivals around the UK as well. But we kind of keep people updated on social media and stuff with where it's screening. And then once the festival run's finished, we'll put it out online as well. So people will be able to watch it then.
Nice. And what's next for Barney and Thomas? You working on anything new? Have you got anything coming up that you can show us, or not show us, but tell us about?
Yeah, we're writing another feature script now. So we're just finishing off the second draft of that, which we're very excited about. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about it because it's based on something. But it's a really cool project. And yeah, I'm hoping that once we finish that, we can sort of get some traction with that. So that's our next big thing.
I feel like after this shot, your next move is definitely a sci-fi. So
yeah, we did a horror as well. We shot like a short. I should mention actually. We shot a short horror film that we then didn't have a chance to edit together because we got the funding for this short, and we kind of had to go like, oh right, okay, we'll move on to this thing. So yeah, once we've finished this draft of the feature, we're going to go back to that and put that together as well. So yeah, I do love horror, so I'm hoping that will be a decent little short as well.
And just quickly on that, because I'm sure there'll be filmmakers watching this interview or people looking to jump into the industry. How does that work? Because I see that you've had BFI funding as well, and the Jewish film community funding as well. Like, how does that go about, and how vital is that for someone coming through?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely vital, and it's yeah, it is difficult. It's difficult. Like, there's not a lot of funding resources available, and the BFI obviously has its short film fund, which is just about to close, I think, for this year. But that's a really great resource, and yeah, you're right. I had funding through that for a script that I co-wrote, like an animated short film that's kind of in production at the moment. So that was through the BFI Network's England Short Film Fund, which I definitely recommend people apply for. I would say it's you need to have a very clear plan for what you're doing for that fund, because it is quite a sort of exhaustive process. You need a producer attached. You need quite a detailed budget. They don't give out that money easily, understandably, because it's a good pot of money. And then the UK Jewish Film Fund, they run, it's called the Pears Short Film Fund, and it's just had its 18th anniversary, I think, nice. Which is amazing. So they fund 2 films a year through that, and you don't have to be a Jewish filmmaker to apply for that. It does have to be a film that is kind of based on an element of, ideally, of British Jewish life, but you don't have to be Jewish to kind of get the funding. So again, that's another one that I definitely recommend people check out. They also do a short doc film fund for like short little 2-minute documentaries that they give money to as well. But yeah, it's not easy, but a lot of it is just perseverance, to be honest, and you've just got to be aware of the funds that are available and be, applying to them as regularly as you can, and then cross your fingers that somebody likes what you've submitted. But yeah, there are routes available, but it's a difficult time at the moment. I'm not gonna lie about that.
No, that's cool. That's absolutely brilliant. And my last question before rounding out is purely just to upset people and to make my guests hate me even more, and that is, it's the desert island question. So you're on a desert island. You've got only one movie for the rest of your life. However, the Kevin Halden nerdly twist to this question is that it has to be a movie in existence that you have remade, and your remake is the version you have on the island.
Oh wow. Okay. God, that's a hard question.
It is, because you don't want to crap on your favorite movie ever, do you?
No, I don't. I don't. Wait, so it's a real film, but I've got my sort of budget version of it that I've made.
Yeah,
Basically.
it can be a big budget, a low budget, but you've remade
Oh, right,
this
okay.
movie, and that's the one you've got.
Oh man, I mean, I do love, like, so the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is like my go-to kind of happy place movie. Weirdly, even though it's not really a happy movie.
I was going to say that's a very happy
yeah,
place movie.
Got quotes from it tattooed on me somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, love it.
But yeah, would I want to remake that? I don't know. But I'm going to go with that. I'll go with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
A nice musical version.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. That sounds terrible. Now that you've said it out loud, that sounds absolutely horrendous. But yeah, I'm going with that.
Right, people. Thank you so much for being here and watching this chat with Barney. Barney, thank you so much for jumping in. This has been so much fun. I've absolutely loved this, and it was a movie that once we all saw it on the panel, everybody on the panel universally just got this movie and loved this movie. So I'm so glad we're getting to show it up on the biggest screen we possibly can. The Soldier of Smithdown Road, again, Friday the 24th of May, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Screen 8. That's my pimpage voice right there. I have to do that.
I get paid. Good. Yeah,
I get paid to do that bit. I mean, I don't, but
that was very solid. Very solid promotional. I like it. It's good stuff.
And Barney, before we leave, let people know where they can find yourself on the social medias, other works of yours. Just take a quick second to promote yourself.
Yeah. If you go to barneypellscholes.com, so it's BarneyPellScholes.com. You can see my website and the other stuff that I've worked on. I'm on Instagram as well. Yeah, Barney Pell Scholes, pretty easy to find. So yeah, would love to connect with people and come and see what I've done.
And absolutely, people, please do check it out. So I was on your website earlier, and there's some really cool projects on there. There's a nice Irish-based project that I quite like the look of.
Yeah, that was our first short film. Ourselves Alone.
Yeah.
That's just finished its festival run now. So that was about a bank robbery in Northern Ireland.
Get that put on YouTube so I can watch that as well.
yeah, it's coming. Don't worry, it's coming.
but Barney, thank you so much for doing this, and we can't wait to show your movie at the festival. And most of all, thank you for letting us have it.
Thanks, man. Thanks, really appreciated this, and it was really great to be here. So yeah, thank you.